channel mammals. Wait a minute. How do you always find me just at the right moment? I wish I could give you each a slice of dollar pizza. It's so delicious, especially after teaching young little children in Sunday school. It was wonderful. But I did want to see you today. We're putting up a video, and I didn't want you to think that you've become upside down, because it's actually the first video, the real first video for the whole group of videos that we made of when we went back up to visit home again. We have to save the best for last. I believe in the best first, but this ended up being the best for last. So it is the best video. It tells the most wonderful story that you will find very practical. So come along. Let's finish up this pizza together. Thank you. Zeno. Hi. Oh, good boy. Were you waiting here for me? Yes, you were, weren't you? I'm going back to the house. You want to come with me? You can come. Do you want to come? Hey, all you channel mammals. Hi. I bet you never see me, you thought you'd see me up here out on terra firma, but here we are today. It's a beautiful day up here. We're up at our old house where we used to live for many, many years. Isn't it great? I love it so much. It takes a while to get up the momentum. Oh, you know what? The dress that I have on. Remember how I told you that I would wear different dresses for you sometimes? Well, this is one of my dresses. It's not made the way most of the others are. This dress I found at a secondhand store way up in the northwest on an island just off the coast of Vancouver Island, off the shores of Vancouver Island, and it's called Orcas Island. It's actually where all these beautiful pods of Orcas whales come and have their babies every year. It's so beautiful there. And it's where a lot of my family used to come from, the northwest. So it's a special place. Anyway, I went to a secondhand store with my mother one day, and I found this frumpy dress. It was so ugly. It fit me like a muumuu. It was just this straight, for a larger person, dress with straight sleeves, just straight. And I think it had a collar, but it's just very plain. But I loved the linen. Isn't the linen beautiful? And so I put these pockets in it. I love having pockets in everything because I can always find things and put them in my pockets. And so I completely redesigned the dress. I changed it to fit me better. I made these little epaulets using some plaid silk that I had, which you wouldn't think would go with a flowered linen. And then I had this little piece of lace that I put in here. And and see the trim. It's little trees, like from the forest. And I changed the shape of the sleeves. And then I took this piece of deer horn and used it and I made these ties because there was so much to the dress. I was able to make a long sash to go around it and made these tucks. And so it's practically a new dress. I mean, it's the fabric and the original hanger of the dress, but everything was changed. So I just thought I'd tell you. And then also these, we call these handcuffs, and they're made. I don't think most people wear them on both of their wrists, but I kind of like it on both of my wrists because it feels like the end of my dress. Even though they're just arms in between, it feels like a cuff on my dress. And we made them with little belts, and actually at the time we were making dog collars, and we just got inspired to use this felt and leather and make them into these beautiful, and abalone. And also what's nice about the abalone is that it is from the Northwest, and the abalones lived on all the beaches, and all of our abalone shells we used to collect off the beaches up when we lived up in the Northwest of the United States. So, and here's our little crest. It's made of pewter. See? That's our Richard's and my little crest for our company. And then this was kind of a joke necklace. I made it as a joke. It's called the dog collar. And so I wear a collar, a dog collar. It's a little bit big for this dress because it hangs down onto this little lace piece. But under a collar of a dress, a blouse, it's just the right size. And it hitches in the front. You see, this is actually where it connects to go on. Let's see? And see the little dog? He's on a little rubber washer, and he has a little crest. And these beautiful little beads are made in Czech Republic, these little beads. And these are regular nuts from building things. So I think I'm going to take it off now, actually. I feel that it's too long for this, don't you think? So it's better just leaving it like this. I hope you like it that way. But I'll leave my bracelets on whilst we go for a walkabout. Okay, well, do you mind if I swing for just a minute more? It won't take me long. These fields on either side of us used to be sunflower fields. And you know, I'd always seen sunflowers, but I never lived with them before. And the most amazing thing, most people know this, but I didn't really realize it until I actually lived with them. But they would lift their heads in the morning and look towards the sun, and they would follow the sun all the way around. Like right now, they would be looking right here, and then as the sun went down, they would follow it across the sky, and then they would bow to it as it went out in the night. So when you're with these sunflowers, their little necks were always following, and it's very slow motion, but it actually does move. It was so much fun. Richard built this beautiful little wall, retaining wall. There was no, let me try to explain my experience coming when we first came here. Well, it was about this time of year, the very end of summer, And it was kind of a sad time for me, because we were coming back from living in the south of England, where it just was so bucolic and so precious everywhere. I really loved it. And then we came back here because there was a job that was needed in our little family. And so Richard applied for this job and took the job of teaching in the university here, or college, a small college. And this house was only the center part of the house. It didn't have these parts off to the sides, and it didn't have this beautiful circular lift of earth around it. It didn't have anything. It was just out here in the field. That little building was there. That used to be my studio. But back in the day, it was a tractor shop where they would repair their tractors, kind of like a shed or a garage. And I'll tell you about the building that you can't see yet. But so it was just a plain, simple, and it didn't have any of those windows or the cupola on top. It was just complete. It didn't have the little vestibule over the door. It was just a box of a house, and it was faded white, almost bare wood by the time we found it. And it didn't have a little road like this, just a dirt path up to it. And all the grasses were grown tall and uncared for. And it was quite an amazing experience. Oh, I feel like I should tell you this story. I should have told you on the swing. But let's just come over here and sit, and we can talk about it. Some of you can sit beside me. Some of you can sit in front of me. Some of you can look over me from behind. Just make room for everybody. Okay, so get comfortable now. When we drove up to this house, Richard had been here already for a month looking for some place for us to live. And Heather and I followed later, and still there was no place for us to live. And he said, I've checked everywhere, and there just isn't anything. So we were just in a borrowed car. We didn't even have a car. So he hadn't even had a chance to drive around in the countryside. He was just in the village, down Pumpkin Hill, down there. And so we drove by this house, and I said, Richard, what about that house? And he said, I'd never seen it before, but we should find out who owns it. So we kept driving. We came inside, and I'm going to read a little story about when we first came inside. When we go inside, I'll read it to you. Just remind me if I forget. Anyway, we explored the house. It was such an eerie feeling, because there's some place where there had been fires built on the wood, and it had burned the floor. Maybe somebody needed a place to stay in the cold night and stayed there, and there were no signs of any life, except for nature. And it was very odd because of that, but I just thought, somebody must own this house, and maybe it's our place to help to care for it. We didn't think of buying it because we didn't have any money, but we thought maybe we could help them to care for the house. So we drove on down the road, and we went to the post office in King Ferry, and we went inside, and we said, do you know who owns that house down the road, on the lake side of the road? And the postmaster said, well, I think it's the Browns' house. And we said, the Browns? Yes. What's the rest of their name? And they said, well, it's Willard Brown. And we said, well, great. And we asked if they could tell us where they were, and they said, oh, they moved downstate to this place called Livingston Manor, because they had inherited a family house down there, and they had to leave this house. So we just thought, how will we ever find out? But they actually had an address for them. They had a post box there, and we were able to be in touch with them. And they said, well, we're coming up in a week, actually, just to make sure the house is safe for winter. And so we met them here at this house. Imagine this house, just stark and plain, out in the cold, windy, icy autumn air. And we sat inside, and they said, the lady said, his wife said, you know, her name was Betty and Willard Brown. And Betty said, well, my husband just as sure get rid of me as get rid of this house. And I was like, oh, well, we didn't really want to take the house from you. We just wanted to see if we could help to care for the house. And they said, well, that might be, and all of a sudden they started thinking, well, that might be possible, but it just didn't seem like they really needed anybody. So then Richard and I went, and Heather, our daughter, our darling daughter, went back to where we were staying in the village down at the bottom of Pumpkin Hill. We were staying in an old house on the lake that was owned by the college where Richard was going to start to teach. And so we were just there, and one morning there was one rock that was in the lake down there that protruded out of the lake. And I stepped on a couple of stones and little pebbly rocks on the way out to this rock, and I was just sitting there, and I had my Bible with me, and I read a verse. I don't even remember what chapter it was in, or what book. I think it was in the Old Testament, and it said, ye shall not build, and others inhabit. And I thought about all the places we lived around the world, and how every one we had brought so much to it. It became beautiful by the time we left. And it seemed like we were always building home, and then we were living and other people inhabited it. And so I just thought, maybe that means that wherever our next place was to be, we would be inhabiting it. I just felt inspired by that. I just thought, you know, here I am sitting on this rock out in the middle of the lake. And you know, I am perfectly at home right now. This is why I'm sitting on a stone wall, because I was sitting on a big stone. And I thought, nothing could be better. I am completely at home. And I just had no more sense of looking for home. I just felt home. And then I finished being quiet and just praying and listening and enjoying my time on that stone. And I wandered back up into this house, this empty house. All that there was there were our trunks from our travels coming to live here, from moving from England. And on the top of one of the trunks, I just plunked down my Bible and we just kind of sat on the edge of this little cot. And all of a sudden, the door had a knock at it. Nobody was around. School hadn't started yet, so no professors were around. Nobody in the village. It was an empty, kind of a ghost town at that time. And I thought, oh my goodness, who could be at the door? So Richard ran to the door and opened it. And who do you think was there? Mr. Willard Brown and Betty, his wife. And we said, oh, well, come in. And they said, well, we were just up here checking on the house again, and we thought we'd stop by and see you. We said, oh, well, come in. And so they sat on the trunks and all around, kind of, and they just kind of looked. They're quiet people. And they just looked around, and we all were just kind of sitting there, you know, wondering what we should talk about. And they said, well, you said that you'd look after the house. And we said, yes. And then there was another quiet time. And Mr. Brown said, would you like to buy the house? And I looked at Betty, and I thought, oh no, he's going to give up his wife, Betty. And Betty, I don't know that Betty even knew he was going to say that, because we found out later why he said it. We said, well, yes, we would love to buy the house, but we don't have any money. And he said, well, that's all right. We can work out something. We can go to the lawyer right here across the road, and we can have him work out an agreement where you would pay rent, a small rent, and that would add up to your making a mortgage. And we looked at each other, we couldn't believe it. And what was amazing was, I'll never forget the rent. It was $146 a month. And I remember gathering every month to have enough for the rent. And it was so amazing. Well, do you know, we found out when they came back another time, when we were finishing up it might have even been when we were with the lawyer. Yep, his name was Mr. Bates, the lawyer. And sat in Mr. Bates' office right there in his library. And he was a young lawyer, and he had a lot of spirit and a lot of creative ways of thinking. He helped us make this agreement so perfectly. And I think either Richard or I asked Mr. Brown why he changed his mind from the last time we'd seen him, when he said, no, you know, we love this house. I grew up in this house. I don't want to sell this house. I want to come back to this house someday. And so what was amazing was he said, you know what changed my mind? And I said, what? He said, I saw a Bible sitting on one of the trunks. And he said, I thought, if these people love the Bible, they'll certainly love my house. And so, isn't that precious? And you know, they did come back up here. They took the land. This used to be 350 acres, and we only had a small portion of it. And they moved on to the other portion of the land with a trailer, but they actually turned the trailer into a home. It hardly looked like a trailer by the time they finished. And we were their neighbors, and I used to make bread for them every week. And it was like they were our grandparents living right there with us, watching over us, whilst we were watching over their homestead. So that's the story on this house. So this was the machine shop for the tractors. It became my studio. And this was, we called it Raspberry Cottage. This little cottage right here. And we called it Raspberry Cottage because there were wild raspberries just completely ensconcing this little place. It used to be a hen house. And when we lived here, it wasn't a hen house. Well, it was later on, but when Heather was a little girl, she lived in this little cottage all summer long. And we would tuck her into bed here and read stories to her out here by lanterns. And instead of staying inside the house, she wanted to stay out here. And it was just the perfect little house for her. It was beautiful at that time. It was so beautiful. Well, now it's turned back into a hen house again. Oh, hello. Oh, hello. You are so beautiful today. Yes, you are. You're so beautiful. Heather's bed went right along here, and all of her dolls and animals lived everywhere in here. There was a little bench at the end. And little lanterns hanging down from the top. Okay, come on outside and see us. Hi, girls. Here's the rest of the girls. Hi. Aww. Don't you love the hum that they make? It's so pretty. Oh, you're just beautiful. Yes, you are. I know. You want to come out. I'm not going to let you out right now. No, I'm just going to come in and see you. Oh, look at them all. They're all coming out. Oh, look at you. Yes. Oh, you're so cute. Uh-oh. That was the wrong way to approach. Okay. carriage house here because it was only the foundation of the original barn that went with the land here. You know, this land came from the Revolutionary War. When the soldiers came back from the war, they didn't have any way to pay them, really, in America at that time. And they'd worked so hard to save America from the terrible totalitarian government at the time of the British. So instead of giving them money, they gave them land to start their lives and their families. And they divided all this region of upstate New York into 600-acre lots, parcels of land called homesteads, and they gave it to the soldiers. And I forgot the name of the soldier who first got this land. I'm thinking his last name was Jordan, but I can't remember for sure. Richard will remember. But anyway, the barn that was here had long since burned or been taken apart, and all that was left was the foundation. So we decided to build a carriage house on it where we could park our cars in these 4 bays, and we could have guests come and stay, or whatever we wanted it for, up above. And I'll show you that when we start to explore inside. So let's just go up to the front stoop of the house, and maybe we'll go inside on our next visit. Coming? Welcome.